Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Denton. It is vampires, with a host of damned souls of telepaths.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. You can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK radio network. And I'm the co-host, Mark Johnson. Now, normally I'm introduced by Irene Allen. And Irene is here. Unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulties with Skype on her end, and she is breaking up. So we're still doing the show here together, but you may not hear her much, and she'll text me questions as we go. But this is the digital age we live in, and sometimes it does not want to cooperate. Irene was just telling us the first time we were trying to do this recording about her Christmas tree. She has 6 Christmas trees in her house, and one of them, it's on batteries, but it keeps turning itself off and on all by itself, and there's no timer on it. Her husband's taken a look at it, and they can't figure it out. So I think we're going to blame her resident ghost Herbert on that one. He just wants the Christmas tree on. Anyway, this is our final show for 2021. It's been a very interesting year, to say the least, but we're going to be off the next 2 weeks for the Christmas holidays, and we will be returning back the first week of January, so January 5th will be our first show of 2022. So we hope everyone has a great holidays in between, but in the meantime, the next 2 weeks, we will play some best of shows. We've had some great guests this year, so we'll definitely play a couple of the better ones that we've had. And then we'll see you all back in 2022. So anyway, this is going to be a slightly shorter show tonight. We're on a time limit, so let me get right to it. I'm going to introduce our guest, Leslie Mitchell-Clarke. Now, Leslie is a Toronto-based certified clinical hypnotherapist, and she specializes in a number of modalities, including working with individuals who feel they have had experiences with extraterrestrial beings. Now, most of this work, as well as metaphysical therapies such as past life and inner life regression, takes place at Leslie's Toronto hypnosis clinic called Lightwork Hypnosis. So, Leslie, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark, and I'm so pleased to be here. I'm very disappointed that Irene cannot join in, but Irene will have a proper chinwag in some format when when the interweb allows. But thank you for having me as a guest, Mark. I'm so pleased to be here. Sure thing. Thank you for coming on. And Irene is still here listening, so she'll probably text me to chime in with questions as we go. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and how did you get into hypnotherapy, and especially how did you get into dealing with people who may have had UFO or abduction experiences? Well, thank you so much for asking, Mark. I most of my professional life was spent in various parts of the entertainment business. I was a dancer. I worked as a singer. I still work as an actor every now and again when they'll have me, when they need a little old lady. But at a certain point in my life, boy, it was about 20 years ago now or so, I just felt completely unfulfilled, like I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't getting any pleasure out of auditions or acting class or anything. And so my husband, bless his heart, he said he gave me a past life regression as a gift, because he was motivated to do that. He thought it would help me, and I went and I had an incredibly illuminating experience that not only was illuminating in the sense of the life that I explored, but the big illumination was I knew that I could do that. I knew that that was the thing that I could really do. And I can't tell you how I knew it. It came about in a rather, quantumly entangled sort of way. But as soon as I knew what I wanted to do, it seems like everything moved very quickly. I was very blessed to study with Dr. Georgina Cannon, who was the founder of the Ontario Hypnosis Center, certainly the foremost training school for hypnotherapy, certainly in Canada, maybe anywhere, I don't know. Anyway, I was blessed. I studied there, and I went on to study what I would call metaphysical hypnosis with Georgina Cannon, which includes past lives, interlives, and something that she calls entity release. I'm not that comfortable with that term. I call it energy release myself. But at any rate, before too long, within 4 years or 5 years, I was actually working as an associate at Georgina's clinic in Toronto. And at that time, about once a month, someone would call in and inquire and say that they believed that they had an ET encounter, or they had missing time, or nightmares, or sleep paralysis. And nobody else who worked there wanted to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I don't know why, but I just said, yeah, bring it on. And so that was really how I began working with these dear people. And in working with them, now I did not reinvent the wheel. I use regression techniques that have been adapted by me from the past life regression and interlife regression techniques that were taught to me by Dr. Georgina Cannon by way of Michael Newton. So I simply adapted kind of what I was already doing to embrace this new kind of work. And what ended up happening, it was almost as if I had been magnetized or something, because what ended up happening is because in addition to working for Georgina Cannon and her clinic, I had also had my own practice called Lightwork Hypnosis, and I began getting inquiries from all over. And this is before I did any radio. It actually is kind of miraculous when I think about it, that I wasn't promoting myself in any kind of way, and it was just, I guess, the law of attraction. Anyway, I started really specializing in this area, and eventually a very nervous, very paranoid college professor walked in my door, and his name was Wes Roberts, and he had a mashup of conscious memories and subconscious feelings, and I began working with him, and it turned out to be quite a remarkable story. He was a lifelong experiencer, and all of that particular case is part and parcel of my recent book, which is called Intersections, A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact. So that's the short version, and I probably went on way too long, but I was drawn to this work. I was just drawn to it through a series of events, maybe randomized events, maybe quantum entanglement, who knows. But at this point now, I'm one of the, I think, kind of very few. There's not a lot of us that do this work. Of course, there's the great Mary Rodwell. Dolores Cannon has passed, and there are some others, a few, but...
well, there was Dr. John Mack from Harvard. He passed away several years ago.
Too.
And then just this year, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who also had been doing this for many, many years. In fact, I got to witness him do a regression on a famous abductee once, which was a treat. So, unfortunately, he just passed too. So there's not quite as many people doing it anymore.
Well, I'm hoping that, by, one of the problems, I suppose, is there isn't really a standardized course where you can learn this aspect. So, I think, Mark, pardon me, I think you've just kicked me in the ass. I think I must maybe write a course book and begin teaching other, credentialed hypnotherapists how to do this. That would be a good thing to do.
That could be, yes, definitely. There definitely we need, because there's so many people who have had experiences out there, and not just the alien abduction experiences, but people who've had high strangeness or different types of traumas, and they can't quite remember what has happened to them. And hypnosis is a great tool to help spark those memories. Even as you mentioned before, past life regressions. I've had a couple of past life regressions I've talked about on this show that were very, very incredible. I'm not going to go into them again. I've talked about them ad nauseum. But let's just say that that the past life, the best one that I had, I was able to find the person and look up their whole history. And in fact, Irene and I were related in that lifetime too. So
yeah, I'm not surprised. This doesn't surprise me at all. And in fact, I have had, a handful, not a lot, but maybe a handful of past life regressions where there is enough recent history and enough information to actually verify the experiences. And it's so there is absolutely no denying this to me, and in fact, very often when I am working with experiencers in recovering or often suggest as part of the experience that we do a past life regression. And what we often find out when we explore, these remarkable people and their backgrounds is that they have, often had lifetimes on other planets where they were, basically the humanoid model, but, with variations. But, they are souls that are here for a reason and have come in to our third density at this particular time to begin to bring about awakening. These people, these experiencers, what I call them is midwives of disclosure, because the more that I know about these individuals and the more we explore past life and interlife, it's abundantly clear that it is a universe of free will, and they have chosen to be here at this time to be, I suppose, maybe intermediaries would be the best way to explain it. And it's a thing of choice. And now I'm not saying there aren't horrific experiences that have happened, but I don't really want to dwell on that tonight, because that was a result of the Eisenhower-Truman agreement with a certain group of Greys, and that has timed out. So the people that I see, I would have to say upwards of 90% have had primarily positive, enlightening experiences.
That's the one thing about a lot of the regression therapies that I've read about. I've read both of Dr. Mack's books. I've read almost all of Dolores Cannon's books. And, in a lot of cases, people, or hell, even Bud Hopkins and Dave Jacobs, people, they're upset, they feel violated, like, why are they doing this to me, blah, blah, blah. And yet, when they go in deeper into the regression, they find out that these people have accepted this role before coming into this lifetime. They volunteered to come in. And of course, like with reincarnation, our memories are wiped. We don't know anything about it, and our human egos get in the way, and we think we're being violated when in actuality we're participants.
I couldn't agree more. And of course, the corollary is even in, one of the things that we learn in past life regression, or that's one of the big, I see it as a learning tool. That's how I view it. But one of the things that should be learned is that we can take responsibility for all the circumstances. Sometimes your father in a particular life may be more like a sperm donor. Sometimes, but we come in for a variety of reasons. We come in for the time, for the historical time, and what needs to happen, and the social roles that we can help fill. We come in for that. We come in to help others learn from us, and we also sometimes only require parents that are essentially donors of genetic material. And so to bitch about your parents, pardon me for saying, but to whine about your parents and, oh, woe is me, my mother didn't do this, my father didn't do that. The bigger picture is you chose those people because of what they had to offer, and it may have been only in the realm of genetic talents. So figure it out. Let's figure it out together and release this woe is me crapola.
Now, a lot of the people that you deal with, how many cases have you done so far, do you think?
Oh, Mark, it would be. I don't want to say it's got to be such a high number. I probably don't. I couldn't even maybe tell you. I've been doing this actively for, although I've been a hypnotherapist longer, but like 15 years really actively, and maybe every week of that time, I may have seen 5 people, 5 experiencers, or more. So it's a substantial, amount of individuals at this point. And I should probably also mention that I am very, very honored to have been, from the very beginning, part of Kathleen Marden's Experiencer Research Project, which is a part of MUFON as well. So I am often referred individuals who have made reports to MUFON and have requested a regression, or have expressed that they would like to experience that to recover their memories. I also work in that capacity with an organization called FREE, which was founded by, again, that beautiful Australian, she's just such a lovely soul, Mary Rodwell, and the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell. So they will also, upon occasion, refer individuals to me who have requested regression.
And with the one case that you did, that you wrote the book about, what about that case really made it stand out for you that made you want to write a book about it?
Well, one of the aspects is when this gentleman came to me, it was almost as if he was a skeptical non-believer. I mean, he didn't. he basically came in thinking probably that he was not mentally well. And unfortunately, as a hypnotherapist, I'm often kind of, as we say in the States, a last chance Texaco. I'm the last stop on an individual's search for help in this area. Now, thank goodness, a colleague of mine, a beautiful colleague named Barb, referred Wes Roberts to me because she already knew that I was specializing in this kind of work. So again, it was one of these weird quantum things or law of attraction things that just sort of happened. But the thing about Wes's case that was so incredibly fascinating to me is not only that he was a lifelong experiencer and we were able to cover experience after experience after experience, but after a certain time in our process together, he was able to communicate in real time with the beings, the particular beings that he was very affiliated with. And this type of being, he was so close to because he had actually existed as one of them in a recent past life. So Wes was working predominantly. Now he did have some other experiences with other kinds of beings, but he was predominantly involved with a group of beings, and specifically a being that he called his twin. And I believe now that they had some long genetic relationship, possibly that extended back into some aspect of time that we can't quite understand. But there was definitely an affiliation there. And
can I ask what type of beings these were? Were they, human looking, like the Nordics,
yes.
or were they Greys?
Yes. They were very Nordic-like in the sense that they all had, the blonde or silver hair, but they were extraordinarily slender and tall. And it wasn't always easy to tell the males and the females apart, is what that's what Wes said to me, that it wasn't always easy to tell the males and the females apart. They definitely had gender, but they were extremely tall and extremely slender, and yet very humanoid as far as facially. I mean, if I had to take a stab at it, I would have to say that they must have been part of the Lyran group or the Pleiadian cluster, because they were, very humanoid as we would perceive it.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you had any idea where they may have been from, but the one thing in all the research that we've done and the experiencers we've talked to, there's that possibility. Sometimes we always think of these beings as being from, let's say, another planet somewhere in our physical universe, when in fact, in a lot of cases, these beings seem to be operating more on an interdimensional level. In fact, a lot of them have to struggle to interact even in our world because they have to lower their vibrational frequencies in order to operate in our physical three-dimensional universe.
Absolutely, Mark. I certainly, boy, that was so eloquent. I'm going to have to write that down. But no, that is exactly the point, that we are really dealing not so much as, when and where and how far. We are really dealing with ultra-dimensionals, is what I like to call them. And even these beings that engage with Wes that I was describing, they have said, in fact, that their planet, their home environment would be perceived as, many thousands of years in the future, and that we can't see it, in other words. So absolutely, we are simply, and it's just like a radio dial, right? I don't know what is so difficult about this concept that everything is vibration. Even Einstein said that, in the 1920s. He said there is no matter, everything is vibration. And we understand this even as just simple, humanoids. If you go into a room or a group of people and there's some toxic energy in there, some bad people, we feel it. Well, it's the same thing. It's vibration. And we are capable of so much more than we are doing right now. We have latent parts of our DNA chain. We have latent parts of the brain that are able to be turned on. And this is going to happen. Maybe not all in our lifetime, but it's absolutely possible. Absolutely possible.
I believe that. I've been hearing that from a lot of different sources, and I'm one of these nuts who believe that the human race itself is a lot older. Our history is completely wrong, and that we come from or descended from a much more advanced type of race, whether it was fully human or not, because of all of the different types of Neolithic structures built around the world that are impossible to be recreated today. It's like we had forgotten knowledge, whether it was, you want to think of Atlantis or Lemuria, or even earlier, we had knowledge before there was some kind of catastrophe. People call it the Great Flood, but I've heard a lot of evidence suggesting there was a solar system-wide catastrophe. And we had a reset. It was almost an extinction level event. We forgot everything we learned over time because the people who knew it died off. And now we started over from scratch. And civilization started coming back about 10,000 years ago.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, this is something that we have to really keep in our minds, that we are the hybrids. We are the aliens, in a sense, and certainly there have been highly evolved cultures. Many of them, I think. I believe that many of the Native Americans and the Mayans talk about the 5 catastrophes, and it may indeed have been as many as 5. And certainly the flood, the melting of the Arctic sheet, the Great Flood, was one of them. And, humanity is extremely resilient, but there were, in fact, incredible resets. And when you think about it now, imagine this, following, the Great Flood, which is not even up. It happened. We know when it happened. It's not a religious matter. It just occurred. The ocean, the level of the oceans is 400 feet higher than it was before the flood. I think in India, off the coast, off what would be, the western coast of India, they by using LIDAR, I think they've located something like 250 amazing prehistoric cities with involved, they look like Angkor Wat, with incredibly involved architecture. So yes, we have global amnesia. There was a Lemurian civilization that was primarily in the Pacific, and we see little remembrances of that now with Easter Island and Samoa and even Hawaii and Tahiti and such. And then the Atlantean continent, which didn't disappear all at once, but, and some of the information, for instance, some of the channeled information from Edgar Cayce says that the Atlanteans themselves had a lot to do with their own destruction because they were trying to send what we would call a laser beam right through the center of the earth to dominate China. That was what Edgar Cayce said. So whatever happened, that, the Atlantic ridge still exists. The mountain range is still there. There are still birds, Mark. There are still migrating birds that hover over the Atlantic ridge, trying to stop there to feed and such before they continue south.
Fascinating. So let's getting back with your regression and your regression therapy. Now, the clients that you deal with, I know you've dealt with the one client a lot. What other types of clients have you dealt with, and what types of experiences have they had?
Well, Mark, that of course that's a pretty big subject. But what I will tell you, is that this type of experience, encounters with extraterrestrials, being taken, maybe not, maybe it's an etheric thing, all of these kinds of experiences no cultural, societal, ethnic boundaries whatsoever. This is an experience that happens and can happen and has happened to all types of people. And so my practice really reflects that diversity of which I speak. I have people who are so sensitive and so damaged that they can barely function in their lives, and they live on the dole, they live on assistance, and they're not functional. I have college professors, university professors. I have people in the legal system, judges, lawyers, and so the commonality, if you were to ask me about what unifies all these people, my belief is that it is telepathic, psychic ability. And I think it's just that simple. I think the people that have those abilities, I think that we carry special DNA. And it's also probably a heck of a lot easier for advanced races who are used to communicating telepathically, for them to communicate with a humanoid who can. And in fact, imagine you're Jane Goodall and you're in darkest Africa and you discover a new tribe of primates, and some of these primates are able to form words and converse. They have an epiglottis where they can do that. Now, wouldn't you concentrate your efforts on the descendants and relatives of the primates that have formed an epiglottis so that they can have speech? I think it could be that simple. Well,
I've also heard, though, of people that did not previously have psychic abilities until they had their first encounter or first abduction experience, and they come out of it, and then they find that those psychic abilities are turned on.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mark, what I would say to that is, I think that a singular experience in adult life or whatever is extremely rare. I think most people that have had one experience have in fact had other experiences. They just don't recall them. And for that very reason, it's not so much things being turned on, but their experience made them aware, and maybe in a sense turned on a certain ability to then utilize a gift, an ability that was already there, innate. So I just don't believe in the one experiencer. I don't.
Totally agree with you on that, because most people who have an experience. I talk about Whitley Strieber all the time. We've had him on the show several times. You know, when he wrote his first book, Communion, at the time, the first conscious experience he had was Christmas of 1985, and it scared the hell out of him. And it took him a few years to start to understand that. And then over time, all the other memories through hypnotic regression and whatnot go back that he's had experiences since childhood. And that's been the same for several different experiencers that we've interviewed over the years, that they'll have memories going all the way back. They can remember being babies in the cribs and remember these beings visiting them.
Somebody told me, one of the experiencers I was working with, who only had partial memory of one adult experience. This is an example. When I got him when I got him deep into trance, he recalled, and this is almost amusing to describe, he recalled being a baby, an infant, and being washed in some type of sterile substance, and being like in a little tub, kind of on a conveyor belt, where ETs that I would describe as tall whites were cleansing these babies. So, I mean, it goes way back, Mark, and it can. And one thing also, a commonality that I found, and I'm not sure if any other people who do this work have realized this, but many of the people that I work with are from military families.
Oh, yes.
And by that, I mean, individuals who lived on bases and moved around. And here in Canada, we have a line called the DO line, and you're too young to remember this, but at a time when Russia was, a threat during the Cold War, Canada and the U.S. built a number of high-tech, and I think nuclear, they say, but they built various military bases on the Canadian border, essentially, so that we would be the first to see any weapons being lobbed over to North America from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the people that I have worked with, again, come from families where they were stationed along the DO line.
Interesting.
So was there access? And now, along those lines, I don't know if you've had this wonderful guy on your show yet, but he's a very good friend of mine and such a delight, Captain Randy Kramer. And he is one of the bona fide people out there talking about the secret space program, and or the 20 and back, if you will. And Randy Kramer told me that he believed that after conceiving him, again, a military family, I'm sorry, forgive me. So after he was conceived, that his mother was, I guess, taken, for a procedure that basically upgraded Randy. And later he became a member of, the mysterious Black Ops secret space program. So there's been, basically what we're talking about, I think, is there's been a whole lot of ET and human interaction that has been approved, and there are treaties. In fact, oh gosh, what is his name? Oh, help me, Mark, my brain. Paul Hillier.
Yes.
There's a wonderful gentleman, Paul Hillier, who was an economics professor by trade, but he was also the Minister of Defense in Canada for some long time, and also the Premier, the Vice Premier, I think, of Ontario. So very big politico. And he told me at a convention in the States, in Canada rather, he told me that to his knowledge, and this was very shortly before he died, he said that he knew of at least 80 species of, humanoids who had official, détente with the Canadian government.
Did you say 18 or 80?
80.
Oh my. Okay.
0. And that's what he told me. And now again, that was quite a few years ago. So, it's so insulting at how we as citizens have had, essentially, our finances redirected into programs that don't answer to anyone and have been involved in secrecy, and the inference that we are too immature to even grasp the idea that there are other people in the universe. Well, I think, the latest poll says that most people believe that. And even our Pope has said, I shouldn't say our Pope, I should say the Pope has said that there is absolutely nothing that goes against Christianity in any way, if there have been beings that were created on other planets, that's part of God's plan. We should accept it and understand it. So, there's stuff happening.
When you mentioned about the military aspect, yes, almost every abductee that I've heard of or heard, their in-depth story, they always have a military connection, whether it's a family member, father, or even an uncle. There is a connection there. And the military seems to be involved in so many different ways with this. Now, how can I ask this? The people that you deal with directly, because I want to focus on your regressions.
Yes.
Have they had any military experiences where they are having an experience with these ETs and see military personnel, or even have what's, I guess, known as a MELAB, which is, a military abduction?
Yes, Mark. Well, I'd say a very high percentage of the people that I work with have had, in addition to benevolent experiences with beings that they're emotionally or spiritually attached to, these other kind of experiences have also happened. In fact, I would go so far to say, as the worst things that I have ever heard were at the hands of military humans. I think that, we have no trouble being horrendous to each other. And I think that is reflected in some of these MELAB situations. But I'd say a very high, as you asked, a high percentage of the people that I work with have had at least some of these experiences. And they are often they're frightening. They range in great diversity from, sperm or ova being taken. But again, that is not as common now. That really ended, back in the 80s. But sometimes genetic material is taken. Sometimes individuals, especially men, are made to, I'm going to use the word mate with females of some derivation. I think it's, that's, so there's that. There are sometimes the installation of implants, which can be painful. But again, that is on the, that's not the primary thing that happens. But all the military experiences, all the MELAB experiences are bad. They're all bad, Mark.
Yeah.
They're all invasive and frightening. I had one dear person who was coming to me, and there was an experience where he and his wife were taken, and they were literally put in cages. like specimens. I mean, there's, and all of this is going on with the collaboration of some type of multinational secret space force. There's no other way to explain it. I've heard the same uniforms described. With the long view now of all of these people that I've talked to, and they don't have any chance to pollute each other's stories. They don't know each other. Many of the people I work with have never spoken to anyone except me about these things. And how could there be so much commonality of experience if the same thing wasn't happening to, I would venture to say, millions of people?
And that's the thing, is what people don't understand is how widespread this phenomenon is. If I had to guess, I'd say more than half the population are having some kind of an experience. Yet you only hear of the few because either people don't remember it or people are afraid to come forward. They dismiss it. So it's, you only hear of a few cases of it. And it doesn't help that our media has been conditioned to dismiss it and laugh it off like it's nothing. I mean, things are starting to change a little bit, but we're never going to have full disclosure like a lot of MUFON people want. It's never going to happen, because it gives away the fact that not only have they been lying to us all this time, manipulating us and using us, but the fact that they have had all this high technology that they've been hiding from us from all these years. So, yeah, it's never going to happen.
You're right, Mark. It is never going to happen in that way. The kind of disclosure that we would have wanted in our dreams. It's not going to happen. And the reasons for that, as, if I can, sort of consolidate what I've heard from many beings, the reasons for that is that the ETs have completely lost patience with the governing figures of the world. Apparently, they
welcome to the club.
Yeah. But I believe that they have been offered, nothing, not weapons, but they've been offered ways to deal with illnesses, to feed people, and and also the biggie, 0 point energy. For Christ's sake, the Egyptians had it, the Anunnaki had it.
Yep.
Earth energy, it's here. So I guess I don't know if you've ever read about this, but there was an individual, and I don't know if he was Venusian. I thought he was Pleiadian, but he was known as a Valiant Thor, and he came and was an honored guest under the Eisenhower administration and stayed for about 4 years.
I remember hearing that story. Yes.
He stayed for you can even find pictures of him on the web. He was a real guy, and he stayed for about 4 years and did everything he could do to try to convince the powers that be that you can feed everybody, you can cure everybody, you can stop raping the earth with coal and all this bullshit. And he gave up. He just said, I've had it. I can't make any headway this way. We're gonna have to try something else. And he left. So I think that the evolved beings that are concerned about us are simply completely frustrated by any kind of administrative anything. So disclosure is a grassroots operation. It's through you. It's through Irene. It is a grassroots movement. And because you can't stop the internet, there's no control, really.
So they're trying. they're
trying, but it's not going to happen, and it won't happen soon enough. And I don't think people will stand for it. I think that's the limit to which we will be deprived. People want their news. They want to interact. It would be like taking away newspapers, 100 years ago. I don't believe that people will tolerate that. So these dear souls, these experiencers, on the other side, have volunteered and agreed to come in as part of our soul group, which I believe includes many different types of ET beings. I think souls are souls, and we are in a big soul group with a lot of beings. They have chosen to come down here to the Cruel School and muck about in the low Trumpster vibrations and assist in enlightening people by telling their own stories. These people are brave, Mark. They are brave people, and many of them get no sleep. Many of them are not only existing in the physical world, our linear physical world, but they also have another life in a way where they travel in their etheric bodies and do tasks and do other things and work with other beings. Because, this is the thing. Not all beings travel physically. Many of them realized a long time ago that they can bilocate and travel at the speed of thought. Like our great yogis who could do it. This is not out of the realm of human experience.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I was done.
I've heard, again, a lot of people who have had these contact experiences have admitted that it feels like they're operating on a different level of reality, that not in our dimension, that they are transported to another dimension. That's where they're having their experiences.
I think that the dimensions can be adjusted. I think that some beings will create an artificial dimension where we can engage with them. And I also believe, and I'm going to leave you with this thought, I also believe that there is, in fact, a kind of a Gene Roddenberry-esque United Federation of Planets, of a federation of benevolent beings who has been watching us and grieving when we fail, but they're very concerned with us because of the power of the atom that we've discovered. But we have benevolent beings. We are not alone. We have never been alone, and we are not alone now.
I know we're coming up on the end here, so let me ask one final question. Have you ever had an experience?
Mark, I had a pretty profound experience some years ago when I was about 16. I was working in a summer theater in the Black Hills of South Dakota, which is actually sacred Native American land. Oops. It's the Black Hills is where, the Rushmore heads are.
Yes, I'm very familiar with it.
It was a huge insult and degradation to the Lakota people for that to be created. That was a sacred mountain. I think they called it the Seven Sisters. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But anyway, that's where I was. And in the company in the first year I was there, so we're talking 1973, in the company was this wonderful gal, and I'm just going to call her Debbie because I don't want to give her a real name. But we became very good friends. She was a little older than the rest of us, and I really enjoyed being with her. And I asked her, "What are you doing here? You have a successful career as a singer in Vegas. Why are you here?" And she said, "Well, I'm kind of hiding out." And she said, I actually work for the government in a secret project communicating with ETs. I said, "Really?" She said, "Yep. And, I live in Vegas, and, whenever I go, I fly in the plane at the plane wrap airport. And I assume now that she probably went to Area 51 or Dreamland or, that's the kind of place she was talking about, but that wasn't in the popular nomenclature then." So, all that summer, every time that we drove into town, which was Custer, South Dakota, and it was a winding, circuitous road through the deep forest, we saw craft. So all summer long, I mean, maybe I had 50 sightings of craft at night, and sometimes so close that I could see the disc-like shape in the colored lights. So that went on all summer. And then kind of near the end of the season, I was, one day I was just hanging out at the snack bar, something I was very good at. And, I looked across the way, which is where, Debbie, the girls' dorm was. Debbie's dorm was over there. And I see a car pull in to the theater complex. And even at that time, it was a retro car. It looked like some kind of bat-winged, Broderick Crawford should have been driving it. I mean, it was a classic Men in Black car. I don't remember whether it was a Buick or what it was, but it pulled in, and they pulled right in front of Debbie's door, right there. And then these two beings got out. And they were wearing anachronistic 1940s type suits with shoulder pads. They were wearing fedoras. They appeared to have no hair, and I was only about 25 feet away. I could really see them, and the skin looked like it was plastic. It wasn't a mask, but it wasn't skin as we think of it. And also they were wearing what looked like heavy orthopedic shoes, and the cuffs of their pants were way up high, like what is the word for that? Well, the cuffs were up high, and they were wearing big black orthopedic shoes. And now in retrospect, I wonder, were the shoes weighted? Was it a gravity thing? I don't know. Anyway, they went into Debbie's quarters, and for some reason I didn't just run right in. I probably should have, but I wasn't afraid, but I didn't. And then about 10 minutes went by, and I just said, I'm going in, whatever's going on. And, I'm 16. I don't know what I intended to do, wave my tuna sandwich at them. I don't know. So I was just about to go out and bust in the door when they came out, and then got into that ridiculous Batmobile thing and exited the theater complex. And later, I went over and basically I said, WTF, what was that? And she said, well, they're still trying to pressure me to come back and work for them and the communication project, and I don't want to. And I asked them to leave. So that's my little story.
Wow.
So from that point on, I believed all of it. And, I had just, Eric Von Doniken's film had just been released. I went to see it in a drive-in. It looked like an 8mm film. It was terrible, but mind-blowing. So
I actually love that movie. I watched it a million times as a kid.
I have it. I have a DVD copy of it. But I was off to the races at that point. And, it was, there have been other experiences, but there's no time to talk about that now. But the main thing is, if there's anyone out there who believes that something of high strangeness has happened and they would like to discuss it, just get in touch with Mark or Irene, and they will get in touch with me. And I am happy to talk to anybody.
Well, do you also have a website that they could visit?
I do. My website is just about to have a facelift. Actually, I should probably have a facelift before the website, but that's another matter. But it's called It's called lightworkhypnosis.com. That's all one word, lightworkhypnosis.com. And you can find me on Facebook, either through Lightwork Hypnosis or Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. And that's a good way to get me too.
Okay, and then your book, Intersection, A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact. Where could people find that?
That is available on Amazon, Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, wherever you Amazon, the book is available. And I should also mention that Wes Roberts has written his own book following that, which is called An Experiencer's Garden. And that is also available on Amazon.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for coming on the program, and we're definitely going to have you back because it sounds like we have a lot more to talk about.
I think so, Mark and Irene. We have a lot to talk about, and I would love to come join you whenever that works out.
Oh, fantastic. Well, our guest tonight has been Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, and that is the end of our show and the end of 2021. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and to another edition of the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK radio network. Everyone, you all have a wonderful holiday, and we will see you next year. Take care now, everyone. Bye-bye.